All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Beat Your Addiction with John Giordano. I'm your co-host, Scott Jones. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And before we go on with the show, I want to remind everybody that this show is meant to be shared and meant to be talked about. So please, if you're watching this show, certainly click on and subscribe to the YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and click the bell so that you can get warnings about next time we have our shows coming on. But that's really what it's all about, John. We do this show because you want to share information that you've learned over your years of service.
Right. We want followers. So this way people can really learn and how to help their loved ones and how to help themselves.
And, there's times when it's just going to be us talking. There's times when, but we always, we seem to be tracking down some really great guests recently. And this one is no exception. I'm kind of excited about meeting her.
All right.
Yeah, this is Trisha Peridot, and she's joining us from all the way out in California, and we're in Florida. In case you're watching somewhere else you don't know, but that's so we're across the country, and we could do this on this show, and that's kind of the miracle of modern technology. I mean, it's taken away a lot away from us, but it's given us a lot too.
East meets West.
So East meets West, and she is a recovery lifestyle enthusiast. She's a speaker. She's a writer. If you want to learn more about her as we're going throughout the show, you can go to wait till the show's over. But then you can go to turningleavesrecovery.com, and we'll share that with you throughout the show. But right now, let's bring her in and say hi. Trisha, how are you today?
I am spectacular. Thank you so much for asking.
That's great. We want to thank you for joining us. I know for us, it's lunchtime. For you, it's pretty early in the morning, I'm sure.
I've had my coffee. We're good.
All right.
And I know there's so much, I was reading your bio and looking at some of your story and there's so many things that you're involved in. But I think for this show, let's just, I think the best way to do it is just to dive knee deep in and see what's going on. So I'm going to step aside, turn the show over to you and John and let you guys talk. But again, this is Trisha Peridot. I got it right? Peridot?
You did. Thank you, Scott.
Well, with a name like Jones, I don't think about other people's names that much. But anyway, I'll turn it over to you and John. Take it away, guys.
All right. Patricia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so the audience can know, where you're coming from and why you got involved?
Well, I got involved, through my own recovery journey, and it's really long, and we don't have time to talk about that today. Anybody can ask me. I'm an open book. I'm happy to share my story and how it looked and how it unfolded. But, why I'm so passionate and why I refer to myself as a recovery lifestyle enthusiast is because in my journey, I really started noticing and uncovering what I guess as practitioners would call gaps in service and things that just weren't there. Like I came out of treatment and it was like, well, now what's next? Like, who's going to teach me how to open the refrigerator door and not reach for a beer? Who's going to, teach me how to, not be impulsive, not be reactive? How am I going to learn how to sit in and move through the post-acute withdrawal that's going to last for 2 years? Which I was lucky enough that my provider taught me about that, but I've noticed a lot of people don't talk about post-acute withdrawal and how long it actually sticks around. But anyway, so it was this gap, AA was great for social support. Therapy once a week was great, but it was the day in, day out, like going back to the exact same environment in my mid 40s and saying, I have all kinds of conditioned ways of being. How am I going to restructure this? So I went to school and studied everything, process, behavioral, and chemical addiction and nature, and just really noticed gaps in service. Like 30 days of recovery wasn't undoing 30 years of conditioned ways of being. It just wasn't going to happen. So I had to figure some things out. And so in my journey, I did. I figured it out. I figured a lot of things out. And so I decided I really wanted to be able to teach and coach people so that they would be able to find long-term recovery themselves.
Oh, well, sound like we're on the same path. 30-day treatment is just scratching the surface, as we know. They come out of detox. They're still reeling and wheeling. Their brain is offline. And maybe in 3 weeks, they say this in every program, within 3 weeks, they might bond with a therapist, and the 4th week, they're gone. And then they're left out doing what? And the only problem is treatment centers don't address the underlying causes for addiction. They only address the psychological underlying causes for addiction. There's a medical reason why people are the way they are, which we're not looking at. And one of those things is, and I say this every show and I keep repeating it, hope people get it. If you have leaky gut syndrome, you will have depression and anxiety. If you have H. pylori infection, you will have depression and anxiety. If you have hypoglycemia, you will have depression and anxiety. You have closed-end injury, you're going to have depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation and behavioral problems. If your hormones are out of whack, if you have low testosterone, you can have depression and anxiety. And if you have high testosterone, believe it or not, you're going to have depression and anxiety, which I just learned that. So there are so many medical conditions that we are not looking at. And aftercare is the key to recovery and a recovery lifestyle. But most addicts and alcoholics don't eat properly. They're volume depleted, means they don't drink enough water, and they're nutrient deficient. And they don't take nutrients to supplement some of the poor food that we have in our society today. So what are some of the gaps that you see?
Well, I really want to touch on what you're saying here, because I think it's important, because this is something I can say I absolutely witnessed in my own life. Hormonally, I was not right. And then I was prescribed Xanax by a medical practitioner who knew I was a daily drinker. And they prescribed it over the course of 5 years. And so synergistically, I developed this physiological addiction that I had never experienced in my life of drinking, right? Like my relationship with alcohol looked different depending upon which decade you were talking about. And so I was like, this is what made me so curious. I'm like, what happened? Even my husband asked me, he's like, why now? What happened? My best friend's like, oh my God, I got to come see you. And remember, I'm in my mid 40s at this time. And, I had a hysterectomy at 29. And so hormonally, I wasn't right. And I developed generalized anxiety disorder and was just given a pill blindly. And it doesn't work out. It just doesn't work out. We've got to learn better ways to treat ourselves. And nutrition, nutrition is the way, right? Like we've got to feed ourselves properly.
Right. Well, the Xanax they gave you, which is the benzodiazepine, is the same receptor site as alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know that. So what they did is they give you alcohol in a pill. It's just like stupid.
Exactly. And that was the first thing when I came out of treatment, when I decided I'm going to go to school because I have to learn what happened to me, and nobody had answers. So I went to school, and that was the first class I took so that I could learn why that developed, like what happened, And so I think it's important what you're talking about, this medical piece and how we actually treat our bodies. Because if we were told, the car you get at 16 is the only car you're ever going to get in your whole life. And if you wreck it, trash it, don't take care of it, you're never getting another one. Like we'd take care of it. We wouldn't put latex paint in the gas can, but we put all kinds of garbage in our bodies and in our systems. And we don't learn effective self-soothing tactics and all of the things, right? The hand to mouth. So many people go from alcohol to sugar addiction, right? Like they cross into that.
That's why they have hypoglycemia.
Yes. When you go to these treatment facilities, and the first one I worked at, and God bless them, they were great. It was an amazing program, and I really loved what they were doing with the population they were serving. But you go into the mess hall and there's this bucket of red Kool-Aid. And I'm like, why are we giving this to them? Like, this is not okay. Like, we're just giving them sugar.
Well, it's not only sugar. The red Kool-Aid also, they found out, wasn't any good because it also caused attention deficit disorder. This is what they said. I don't know how true that is. But, red dye was, I think they eliminated red out of their...
they stopped using that dye that they used to use.
Yeah, right.
But there was for a period of time, they used coloring that actually was not healthy. It was unhealthy.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So, it's like what you're saying. We're on the same page because, see, anybody like yourself and myself that are looking for Western medicine fixes it after it's broken. Eastern medicine fixes it before it's broken. So, I mean, there's two different ways of looking at life. Who wants to fix something after it's broken? You know?
Right.
And the sad part is that our food supply is really bad. And our water supply, people don't realize that heavy metals also cause all kinds of problems in the brain, and it interferes with neurotransmission and causes it to look like bipolar disorder, attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And nobody's looking at that. Oh, your mother left you when 3, your father left you when 5. You're traumatized, so that's why you are the way you are. Well, that's part of it, but there's a whole other piece to it that we're not looking at.
100%. And I think it's really important that people, start to look. And a lot of the folks that I work with actually come to me before they're completely broken, which I love. I love that they feel like, okay, wait, maybe I can do this without having to leave and go to treatment. And then they get to me before, it's before they have to have that medical supervision, which is great. And I encourage that if anybody's, sitting there saying, gosh, maybe I'm, borderline, reach out to somebody, find somebody that speaks your language, because that's super important also. But, we break things down right at the beginning. We look at our whole health. And I even have JV partners that help with the prescriptions to holistic well-being, to your guided health journey, where, we're detoxifying the liver, the kidneys, that gut health that you're talking about. And all while we're working on the cognitive skill sets, because it is a whole health situation. It's not just removing the substance. We have to take a look at, why am I relying on something outside of me to bring me peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity,
100%.
worthiness? There's so many layers and textures that you can't possibly touch it in a brief intervention, which is really what, insurance is allowing space for, is just that brief intervention, that detoxification, stabilization. And then now what? You've got to examine your whole life.
Well, the insurance companies run the treatment centers and the pharmaceutical companies, and they tell you how long you could stay and what kind of therapy you can give. And unfortunately, things that really work, they don't pay for, so nobody does it. See, you were talking about post-acute withdrawal syndrome, okay, which they call PAWS. Now, if you ask an addiction doctor or a counselor or anybody, what do you do for that? They just tell you time, because they don't know. Well, let me give you a little insight into what helps with that. Hyperbaric medicine. All right, it's oxygen under pressure that they used to use for the bends, so they still do, by the way. Now they use it for wound healing and then traumatic brain injuries. No one's going to argue that drugs don't damage the brain. So if your brain is damaged, if you use oxygen under pressure, all right, believe it or not, post-acute withdrawal leaves within a couple of months.
Wow.
I know that may sound a little strange, but it's the truth, because in my treatment center that I had a 62-bed inpatient facility, or residential facility that was JACO accredited, the whole 9 yards. We used hyperbaric medicine. And it was amazing. And then we also, you did micronutrient tests and hair analysis to see what heavy metals are on board. There's so many things that we can do to help people when they come in, because they have multiple things going on with them, not just a psychological approach. So the problem is we talk about aftercare, but if we don't address those issues, everything is worthless.
Right.
Because what they do is they cause us to respond to life in a certain way. And I always tell people, if you're looking for something outside of yourself, okay, that's going to deal with your emotions and all this kind of stuff, like drugs and alcohol and eating disorders and gambling and spending addictions and sex addiction and on and on and on and on, okay, maybe you have a problem.
Yep. Yeah. And people don't think of it that way. Like, your 6 a.m. spin class can be a problem because it's controlling you. It's a habit that's holding you hostage. And it literally makes or breaks your whole day. Like it can be something that you think is healthy, but it's not. emotionally
even the
healthy.
sort of people, they over-exercise. So that's an
Mhm.
issue. So anything you do to an extent like that, of course, you could drink too much water, and still get sick. I mean,
Yep.
everything has to be within balance. And a lot of people don't realize exercise actually depletes stress, okay, and also raises dopamine within a normal range. Not that you're going to
Mhm.
work out for 4 hours a day, right? So if you do an hour a day, 45 minutes, you're fine. All right. When you start going into 2 and 3 and 4 hours, then you need to take a look at that.
Right.
You know, there's so many pieces to the puzzle of addiction and mental health that we're not looking at. And great, and so glad that I have someone like you on our show that is looking in that direction to help people. Because God knows a lot of these people do not know what they're talking about. And what happens is they keep treating people the same way we've been treating them for 70 years, and it's outdated. We
Oh,
keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Isn't that definition of insanity? We only have a
absolutely.
5 to 8% recovery rate. Something's
Yeah.
going on, but something's missing.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not looking at how can we make it lifelong manageable and maintainable.
Well, if you like for nutrient deficiency, if you have nutrient deficiencies in your body, your brain is not going to function right because it doesn't have the fuel to function properly. So you take a
Mhm.
micronutrient test. That'll tell you where you're deficient. There's people who don't
Mhm.
know about these tests. You do a heavy metal test. Okay, you see if you have too many heavy metals in that is disturbing your brain. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of things we could do that no one knows about and no one talks about, except
Right.
you and I and a few other people.
Yes, I do feel like we are a rare few. I love, doing outreach and, talking with facilities. And I recently did a CEU course for CATIE, which is the California Association of Alcohol and Drug Educators, on the continuum of care. Trying or speaking to my peers, if you will, about their discharge planning and how that in and of itself needs revamping, how we need to be encouraging folks to engage in long-term recovery, connecting them with services over and above the social supports and therapy. And I work with a lot of therapists who are dealing with the trauma, and what we do is they continue working with the trauma, but I help the clients start living in today going forward, right? Like not just sitting still waiting for the trauma to disappear, like really teaching them how to put it on the shelf when it's not time to be looking at it.
Well,
And
trauma. I work with people that have trauma, and I don't know if you're familiar with EMDR.
mhm,
Okay, I move with desensitization reprocessing that Dr. Shapiro founded.
yeah,
And it works real well with trauma, but I redeveloped it and I call it TRT, Trauma Release Technique, which I incorporated neurolinguistic programming, holotropic breathing, and hypnotherapy into the technology. And
nice.
what people don't understand, you see, this talk therapy deals with the software of the brain. All right. This type of therapy deals with the hard drive. And what people don't realize, you may figure out in the software that, we should put it here, we should do this, and we shouldn't respond to it. But the problem is it's still on the hard drive and then it resurfaces. So you have to, it's just like if you erase something off your computer, it's still on your hard drive. So you have to go directly to the hard drive. And this is one of the techniques that you can go do that can actually help with the trauma and for life, not just for a month or two. So
Thank you.
there's a lot of stuff out there that really works, but people they don't know what to do. And then you say we talk about aftercare, but the discharge planning, before the discharge planning, we should teach them how to help themselves. They have to exercise, they have to eat properly, they have to do proper nutrition, and on and on and on, and give them a playbook to bring with themselves to aftercare.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things that I was super passionate about, was creating something that would be that daily way of being, those skill sets and tactics that they could use in any moment, right? Like, so something super simple, getting centered and grounded. A lot of people think of meditation, yoga when they think of being, getting centered and grounded, like it's an event. We have to have go-to tactics, like right now. Like if I'm driving my car, I can't drop into a meditation if I start to feel derailed. I'm driving a car. I've got to have something to go to in here that keeps me from being reactive. Otherwise, me, German, Irish, Scottish, Sicilian, Taurus, born on the cusp of Gemini, somebody's tailgating me, I'm tapping my brake, like, getting that road rage. Instead, I had to create go-to tactics that would calm, bring me back down, and allow me to, just move over, get out of the person's way, sit in and move through that uncomfortable without, needing something outside of me or needing to actually stop living. And I think it's really important that we have tactics that we can go to in any moment to help us do that. So the person that's driving past their favorite liquor store can actually go, yep, I used to stop there, but I don't anymore, and can keep going. But we've got to learn how to do that. And we've got to learn what is going to work for each individual person.
Well, that's called, in NLP, they call it positive anchoring. So what you're doing is you're taking one thought and have another thought that's the opposite from the thought that you had that was negative. Mm-hmm. So you have a go-to thing. A lot of good things while you're driving is, you put on some music, certain music, okay, can calm you. All right. Other ones that you hear a song, you could start crying, you could start laughing because, sound and music brings back memories.
Right.
And the frequency of sound also calms the brain, certain frequencies. So there's a lot of different techniques that people can use. A lot of people don't know what to do. We talk about, you need to do this, but what do they need to do? How do they need? Because everybody's different. So a technique doesn't work for one, works for another.
Absolutely. And I think that's key. We talk about effective self-soothing. And so, people, look at what everybody else is doing, I'm going to try this, I'm going to do that, instead of looking at what is going to work for me. And I guarantee you, it's not sitting on the couch eating a bucket of Ben and Jerry's. That's not effective self-soothing. But you have to look at, what is my body telling me right now? You have to learn how to listen, because your body tells you exactly what it needs. It will tell you 100% of the time if you can listen.
Let me kick in just for a minute, guys, because you touched on a point that I think the two of you can address very easily. There seems to be this fallback position of all addicts are the same and are treated the same. All alcoholics are the same and are treated the same. Like it happens, we see it in treatment centers where they have one set of programs and everybody has to fit into those. We see it in self-help groups and 12-step groups where their number one thing is nobody's unique. We're all the same. We're all exactly the same. Does that hurt the progress in learning about yourself and growing into a sober human being?
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure that John has lots to say about this, but I'll say, even in my program, when somebody calls me and I do that, discover your right fit consultation piece, and I'm doing a mental health or addiction severity assessment, I will give somebody an honest answer whether or not, I feel like I'm the right fit for them. If everybody speaks a different language. So if I don't speak your language, I'm not going to try to sell you on my program. I'm not going to, do a hard sales thing. Like if we're not clicking and vibing, or if I feel like your level of severity is too high, or I feel like you're going to respond, say, to John's program more than mine, I am going to, as an ethical practitioner, I am going to refer you or try to connect you with that person that will speak your language, because there's no reason to engage in a program that doesn't speak to you, mind, body, spirit. And so, I think that, when family members reach out to me, and they want me to work with their, whatever, son, daughter, cousin, aunt, whatever, absolutely, I'm like super flattered. But unless I can form a bond or a relationship with that person one-on-one, I'm not going to take your money and enroll them. I'm not going to bring them in unless I know for a fact that we're going to have a cohesive relationship, because my job isn't to teach you my way. My job is to coach you in figuring out how to utilize the skill sets, the tactics, the psychology, the methods, the modalities that I have figured out are extremely effective with an over 97% success rate, because I don't bring people in that don't fit the program. But it's my job to stand next to you and help you navigate the now what's next. How does this fit into my life? Because that's a problem with self-help, is there's nobody there teaching you how it actually works in your life. You're trying to put your life into somebody else's method and modality instead of taking that method and modality, editing and deleting, making it your own and using it to your best interest. Like there's got to be that kind of involvement and that kind of engagement. So when these business coaches tell me you've got to do it, one to many, and I'm like, no, I can't do this one to many. Everybody is different. Everybody is unique. Everybody is special. Everybody's journey needs to be paid attention to. And I'm going to do that one person at a time if that's what it takes.
Well, that's
Good. No, I was just going to say, John, I know you got something to say about this.
Yeah, well, it's about rapport is what you're talking about. Information is great, but if you're not in rapport with somebody, they're maybe hearing it, but they're not listening. And listening is a skill. Hearing is biological. So
yes,
you're right on the money with what you're saying, okay? And being ethical about it, not just to take a client on because they got a few dollars. That never works out, and that's bad karma for you anyway, for those who do that kind of thing. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different path. You got to go where the client's at, not where you're at. And that's very important, all right? Because there's different cultural aspects. Some people that are poor people or people that from the streets are one kind of culture. People that up in uptown that are wealthy people have a different culture. So, everybody's different. So you got to work within that culture.
Yes.
John, that was something you were very successful at back when we worked together years ago, is you always had such a group of diverse people around you working with you so that you knew, all right, this person's not going to fit with this person. I can put this person with that person, and you were always just really good at recognizing that not everybody should be treated the same. I mean, you can't do that and have success.
No, even the rooms, when we used to put people that in the room together, I wanted to make sure that we had people that were kind of like-minded.
Yes.
Otherwise, they cause a lot of problems with each other. Excuse me.
I do the same thing with my groups. Like they're not mandatory. They're actually just kind of a luxury. It's if you want to come, great. If you don't, awesome. However, I also don't invite everybody to the group. Sometimes it's co-ed and sometimes it's not,
Sometimes it's good to have a mixed group where people are opposite ends of the stick, so everybody can look at that. If you have, a lot of the young therapists, they know how to read out of a book, but they don't know how to be in rapport with people. So what they're doing is regurgitating information, okay, that's just bouncing off the clients. I believe clients have to feel like you really emotionally connect with them, not intellectually, because a lot of people have low self-esteem. And, I remember years ago, the therapists used to wear suits. The men used to wear suits. And the therapists used to dress up to the nine to do therapy because their idea was, I'm the therapist and you're the patient. Well, that didn't work out very well because addicts already feel less than. Now you're really making it feel less than that. Oh, look at this guy. He knows more than me. I don't know anything. And look what my life. And so they did away with that, recommending that you have to wear suits. And that was many, many years ago.
Yeah.
So it's
yesterday I worked all day, half in my loungewear and half in clothes. Seriously, I think really what the client wants to know is that they're understood and that you can relate to them, and where my stories aren't necessarily, exactly the same as others, but I can when you've lived a life that consists of sexual assault, domestic violence, rape, eating disorders, addictions, all kinds of things. Like if you haven't walked that, people feel it. And that's not to discount therapists that maybe haven't walked a mile in most of our shoes. But it does come through, and
Well,
people can
absolutely.
pick up on that, and it makes it harder for them to connect.
You don't necessarily have to be an addict to talk with addicts, but you have to have a certain amount of empathy and a certain amount of charisma, okay, in order to get through to us addicts. Because if you haven't walked a mile in our shoes, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So, and that's one of the troubles that a lot of therapists have that are not recovering. Okay, they have to overcome that, and they can if they're skilled enough to do that. But unfortunately, not everybody's skilled at it, and a lot of things you learn in school are outdated before you even get out of school.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then the changes with insurance, of course,
Yeah.
running the show. Now we're saying, like here it's the CAT-C or the CADAC. When we get our drug and alcohol certification as counselors, a lot of facilities aren't able to even utilize those practitioners because they have to have licensed clinical practitioners. And so a lot of us that want to be of service, maybe can't afford to go and get a master's degree, and things like that. And so it really makes it difficult, I think.
That's true. That's 100% true. You see, one of the biggest things that I talk about is the biggest mistake that the insurance companies made was to not allow people that had like a certified addiction professional, not a licensed professional, to do individuals. They can do group, but then somebody has to sign off for them. And what's going on is the mental health people took over, and they've been trying to take over the substance abuse industry forever. And they don't know anything not too much about substance abuse. But then again, conversely, people that are in the certification group doesn't know too much about mental health. But that changed over the years. You have to learn about mental health and substance abuse because they go hand in hand.
Right.
So the problem is that they cut out a lot of real good people that really can help people by not allowing them to do certain things in a treatment center, which I think was very foolish.
Well, it's part of what motivated me to go into the coaching modality, right? One, it matches my personality. I'm sure y'all can see I'm not real sedentary. I'm not real low key. I'm pretty energetic. I'm like, let's get down to business. Let's make
all
this
right,
happen.
my kind of girl.
Right. So when I'm looking at the coaching industry, so I took those practices, I converted them to coaching models, whatever. But I get to not be bound by state line. I get to work internationally. I get to work with people all across the US. I get to teach people and train people and get them certified as recovery coaches. And that to me is super amazing because now we can actually go out and we can create our own space. And it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. There's a lot of recovery coaching, coaches out there that we just need to continue speaking about the efficacy of what we do. Because, when we're comparing it to, treatment programs and coaches, we're not glorified sponsors. We do have training depending upon where you get trained. I get it. There's good schools and there's not good schools, but you want to make sure that you're getting trained from an accredited coaching program. But I also like to let people know when you're making those insurance elections or selections, really take a serious look at your HSAs and your FSAs, because if you read the fine print and what those things are good for, I'm going to give you.
Could you explain what that is to the audience? Because they may
It's
not
a
know
health savings. It's a health savings account and a flex spend account. And so the employer would contribute in as do you, and you can use it for things that aren't covered by your basic plan. And in those line items is life coaching, which recovery coaching falls under, and recovery needs not otherwise covered, which recovery coaching falls under. So you can utilize those insurance accounts because they run like a credit card for recovery coaching. And so it opens up doors for them financially when they realize, oh, I have this account that I can use for my recovery needs. And it's really awesome.
A lot of people don't know about that, and a lot of insurance companies don't have that. But you see, unfortunately, this is the unfortunate part, that if you don't have money today, it's really hard to get good health care. And that's just unfortunate the way we have it in this country. And there's a lot of good stuff that are out there that the insurance companies don't pay, and that really works really well. And people can't access it. And that's the sad part. So what you're doing and what we're doing here is giving people the ability to take control of their lives in a way that is reasonable for their financial position in life. Exercising, you could walk, you don't have to be in a gym. You could swim, you could, there's a bicycle ride. Eating, you could, pick proper kind of foods to eat, not junk food, because junk food is garbage, okay? And all these little things that we can give them to do. Self-help groups are great, okay? But it's not for everybody, The different groups are different for different. It's like going to a bar. If you're not a motorcycle guy, you don't go to a regular bar. You want to go to a motorcycle, where motorcycle bar people go. And vice versa. If you don't ride a motorcycle, you're not into that. You don't go to a bar where everybody rides motorcycles. So it's just like meetings. Not every meeting is different, and every meeting's for different people. But if you're going to walk along a certain lifestyle, you got to be with people that are on the same planet as you. You can't hang out with your old buddies that are
your language.
Huh?
You got to be speaking each other's language.
That's right. You got to be like-minded. Otherwise, you're in the wrong territory.
So speaking of taking control of our recovery and everything else, I got to take control of the show because we're running over.
Oh,
but I have a feeling that where I could just go lay down in the corner, you guys would keep going, and I'd have to stop you in about 3 hours.
Probably.
So we will have to revisit this again with you, Tricia. Now, tell us really quickly about turningleavesrecovery.com.
Well, I think, I covered a lot of it. It's a recovery lifestyle journey. And there are lots of options from free to, a full year of spending time with me and my other coaches and, my community. So there's a lot to choose from. And it's really just my passion to bring my knowledge, my education, my training, my certifications, my whatever you want to call it, into your life and help you learn how to add, edit, delete, make it your own, and create the life that you want to witness yourself living. And and that's really, there's so many layers and textures. I just always recommend people. I 100% will sit with everybody and do a consultation, a meet and greet, 100% free. I don't care. I just want to help connect you where you need to be.
Cool. Now, all of your information is on Turning Leaves Recovery. They can reach you through there, and your numbers and your emails are all right there. So I encourage people, if you've enjoyed listening to Tricia Perdo and John talk about all of these things, if you have any questions, certainly go to turningleavesrecovery.com, reach out, and Tricia, you'd love to talk to people. Even if they just have a simple question, you're the person who's you want to answer that for them, right?
You can even chat with me straight from the website. There's a chat button.
Oh, wonderful.
And all my clients always have my cell phone. I am literally an open book, super accessible. Just, you can send me a text message. Grab the phone number from the website. I'm fine with that.
Now, if any of you out there would like to choose John over the beautiful Tricia, I don't know what's wrong with you, first of all. Second of all, but if you want to know more about John and what he's doing, you go to johnjgiordano.com. It's right there at the top of your screen. The J is a letter J. johnjgiordano.com. It's all about John's everything from his life and his journey and his amazing pathway that you've taken. His books are available there, his publications, many journals and publications that he's in. All of that information is there. And of course, there's ways to reach out to John too. So Turning Leaves Recovery, if you'd like to reach out to Trisha, John J. Giordano, if you want to reach out to John and ask questions. I'm pleased. I'm given this time of year, I'm thankful, like Thanksgiving, thankful to have people like John and Trisha out there doing this work. And we really appreciate it.
If anybody, my life story, I wrote it. I was homeless when I first got started in recovery because I got divorced and then I didn't have any place to live. It's called The Kid from the South Bronx Who Never Gave Up. It's my life story. And the other one is How to Beat Your Addictions and Live a Quality Life. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it in Barnes & Noble. You can get it all over the place.
Just go to the website. It'll lead you in the direction you need to be.
Right.
But for now, we've come to the end. And once again, I want to thank Trisha Parado for her time. Thank you so much for your efforts, your time, and now I know a recovery lifestyle enthusiast. You are enthused by the lifestyle.
That's right. You did a great job.
Thank you. It was really a blessing being here. Great way to start my day. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And we'll hopefully be talking to you again really soon. John, any final thoughts?
Yeah, there's a good friend of mine out in California, and I can't remember her name.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes. No, Dr. Hyla Cass. Look her up. She's an integrative psychiatry.
Oh,
I bet you they'd love to chat.
Oh, yeah. Hyla Cass is great. She's a good friend of mine. She's been on Dr. Oz. She's been on Dr. Phil's, everywhere. Wrote many books.
We'll send you the information and stuff and let her know,
Thank
too.
you.
All right, cool, man.
All right, guys. For now, I want to thank everybody for joining us. For John Giordano, I'm Scott Jones. Thanks for watching Beat Your Addiction on the ATC Recovery Network.